Hey y'all, it's your girl Coach Kinsley. Today we're going to talk about fasting.
Fasting. The only thing I know about fasting is that when I tried it way back in the day, it didn't really work for me. But I'm ready to listen, laugh, and learn because everybody's got 15 minutes.
Let's get into it.
It's Fitness Fix with Coach Kinsley. I'm producer Mike, former client of Coach Kinsley's, senior editor for the podcast, who pushes through every set until I hear
3, 2, 1, let's go!
Remember to always consult your physician before starting any nutrition or fitness regimen.
Fasting generally isn't a new concept where you don't really eat. And there's some people that do it for religious reasons, and there's some people that will do it for health reasons. Across the board, when you're looking at your caloric intake, it's more helpful to look at it on a weekly basis, not necessarily a daily basis. But there's different types of fasting that will look at it from weekly or daily. I just want to make sure that all of our listeners know we want to stay safe if we are going to decide to fast. So let's get into it.
Like I mentioned in the intro, Coach, I don't know much about fasting other than I didn't do it right and then I didn't really try it after that. It happened right before I started walking, before I started creating habits. The first thing I was going to do to lose weight was to hit a goal on a scale. And by doing that, I wasn't going to eat. That was my plan, to fast, not eat, and lose weight that way. No real plan, just don't eat. And it's funny, that same time period, there was a show on the History Channel called Alone. And Alone survivor was about 10 survivalists who went out into these islands and brought 10 tools with them and had to build everything from scratch. And they had to work and they had to build and they had to hunt and they had to fish and forage. Some guy was eating a bark off a tree because it had
Ooh.
nutrients in it, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, they were hungry all the time and they complained about it. And well, so did I. And so I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I can work and be hungry and just not eat. And guess what, Coach? Couldn't do it. Not my thing. My kids were in activities. Schedule was kind of hectic, so we kind of had to eat together when we could. And, I couldn't sit there with half a carrot trying to smile and act like this was a normal meal. And back then, I prioritized those feelings over the feelings of getting in shape and getting my health back and all of that. I was just more concerned about day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, I guess. So I'm looking forward to picking up what you're putting down and actually be informed about fasting.
You're definitely not alone in your experience. Like, fasting works for some people and it doesn't work for others. Now, I like that you mentioned that you were trying to reduce your calorie intake because that's essentially what the idea behind fasting for health reasons is. When you're looking at getting the proper caloric intake for the week or for the day. If you want to track your calories, that's personally the way that I do it. I track my calories throughout the day, make sure that my macronutrients are well, so your proteins, your carbs, and your fats. If you aren't interested in tracking calories, if that's just a little too much thought or too much time, I feel like fasting is a good way to put you into a good caloric intake without all the decision fatigue behind all the different apps that you can use and keeping track of every label or looking it up if you're eating unprocessed goods, which is preferable. Fasting can take away some of that decision fatigue. There's a few different types. So the types that I want to go over today is going to be TRE, or time restricted eating, which seems to be the most common one right now. And then there's intermittent fasting, looking at it more for a week view. And then modified alternate day fasting. And all of these are practically what they sound like.
So, yeah, back when I was hurrying to get into shape in 6 weeks or less, I just thought intermittent fasting just was all fasting. I didn't know there was a difference. I didn't know that there were various time periods with various theories behind them and different ways to approach it. And intermittent fasting had its own set of guidelines and was its own thing and not an umbrella term.
Right. Intermittent fasting has turned into this umbrella term, which is fine, but let's be specific today. So, intermittent fasting, when you're talking like in the health community, especially if you're going off of NASM, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, is going to look at more of your weekly intake, not so much your daily. So, it's looking at the whole entire week, where usually people, if they do this type of intermittent fasting, will be 5 days of a normal caloric intake and then 2 days of fasting. And these 2 days can be in between some of your normal caloric intake days, or they can be two in a row, depending on how your lifestyle is. And the two fasting days aren't necessarily 0 calories. Usually, these two fasting days are just going to be very minimal. They'll be 500 to 700 calories, while the other ones are going to get well into the thousands on the non fasting days.
So that the 500 to 700 calories is, last I checked, more than zero. So you could actually have a little food on your fasting days. Maybe that would have kept me in the loop when I very first started doing this, but I just wasn't educated enough, and I don't think even that would have lasted. But that's really interesting to learn, that you could actually eat on your fasting days. Something, at least, and stay hydrated, and then look forward to regular meals on your other days.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. 500 to 700 is not a lot. I would never suggest this for like every single day. Like, even at my small stature, I really don't want to be rocking less than 1,400 calories on normal day to day. So, I definitely want us all to know that 500 to 700 calories in one day is considered a fasting state. Like, your body is going to be pulling from other places, not just what you're eating. So that is not something you want to do more than 2 days a week if you're doing intermittent fasting.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that a full meal was 500 to 700 calories. That was a great point to bring up, that those low calorie days are followed by large calorie days, or normal eating days, I should say.
Yeah, so when you are in these really small caloric windows, if you decide to do this intermittent fasting that's looking at the whole entire week, you'll need to make sure that the quality you're getting on those days is very protein heavy. I'm talking fish. Oh, yeah, we're bringing it back.
The specter of eating a fish fillet, seasoned and cooked well, is going to become a reality whether I like it or not,
It will. I'm not letting up.
because the health benefits far outweigh all of my hopes and dreams of seeing it deep fried and golden brown and delicious. I'm sure the deliciousness will come from other places. And lo, over these many episodes, Coach, you have continually preached the health benefits of a piece of fish. Count me in, okay, count me in. Fine, whatever.
Yay. Love that trajectory. We're going to keep on that direction. So, this intermittent fasting, where you're looking at the whole entire week view, doing 5 days of normal caloric intake and then two of lower, this is the type of fasting that took me out of my plateau. When I was rocking my workouts, nailing my nutrition Monday through Friday, but then just kind of going crazy on the weekends and not paying attention and not being active. Having my 2 days in a row on the weekends took me out of my plateau. So, this isn't something I'm doing now. It's not something I'm sustaining, but it's something that really helped me get into a safer body fat percent, which is the biggest reason to ever do intermittent fasting. If you're not in a healthy or safe body fat percent, this is going to help you get there. It's going to then reduce the risk for chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and then dementia later in life. But you can get there without fasting as well, just looking at your caloric intake throughout the week.
Whoa, now wait a minute. If I heard you right, and I think I did, you said that you fasted too? See, that's a surprise to me. And though I've only known you for a few years, but sometimes you're in there working out 10, 12 hours a day, including your clients and then your own workout. So I've got to think that that's affected your strength level, energy level when you're fasting on those days. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. I tried doing this fast on days that I worked out, and the workouts suffered so greatly. So I would not suggest for athletes to do this on days that they work out. I would very much so put the fasting days on the rest days. You know, you're not expelling as many calories. And then if you are being really intentional about making sure that the calories you are getting in, those 500 to 700 on those days, are protein focused, you should still get the proper recovery. But if you're not feeling recovered by fasting on your rest days, then just look at the whole entire week instead of fasting on those days, right? Because the reason why this fasting works is because at the end of the week, if you want to lose a pound equals 3,500 calories. So you can put all those calories deficited into 2 days, or you can just do 500 calories under every single day. So if your recovery is suffering or if your workouts are suffering, this isn't for you. Just like when you tried the fasting, it wasn't for your lifestyle. There are social implications to doing this as well.
As you said before, it's a math problem. So instead of bunching your calorie loss on 1 or 2 days out of the week, you spread it across the week and then hit that calorie deficit through nutrition. And that still is the same 3,500 calories. That's a great way to frame it, Coach, to think about it in a weekly basis instead of a daily basis. And you're getting to the same island, whether you drive, fly, swim, boat, submarine, whatever. You want to hit that 3,500 calories at the end of the week, lose your pound. Okay, I get it.
Right. So these are just other ways that you can do it. And the goal of doing any fasted or any caloric deficits is to get you into that safe body fat
Okay,
percent.
that's another interesting approach to fasting. And I think that's probably how I approach it, even though I didn't really know it, in that I sort of eat lower calorie during the day and then hit a meal at the end of the day where I get most of my calories. And because I'm doing some sort of activity, whether it's lifting or whether it's slow jogging, walking, mobility, whatever, and you mentioned that if you're an athlete, you should probably fast on your recovery days or go lower calorie on your recovery days. And I thought, well, wait a minute, that's me. I'm an athlete.
That's you.
Well, how about those apples? I think that means me. So there you go. It's another non scale victory.
Yeah, claim it. That's what I'm talking about.
Earlier, you had mentioned body fat percentage. Generally speaking, what is a good body fat percentage, and does it differ for men and for women?
Yes, they do. So, according to the NIH, the National Institute of Health, a healthy body fat percent for men is going to be between 12% to 20%, and for women, 20% to 30%. Now, if you're less than this and you're an athlete and you talk to your physician, I wouldn't be worried, but it would be more detrimental for women to be way, way low because then we're getting into the realm of potentially being infertile. That's why these ranges are so wide. It is different for everyone. So if you're lower than this, talk to your physician. If you're higher than this, get a personal trainer. And if you're in it, get a personal trainer. If you're under, everyone should get a personal trainer. You have one. You have one. We have one. But, anyways, you guys already know how I feel about personal trainers. Personal trainer a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, I can advocate for people getting a personal trainer anytime. Education, inspiration, consistency, efficiency, the ability to assess where you're at and design an exercise plan that's going to meet those needs, all of the things. It is absolutely the best investment in your health and your longevity and your quality of life over the long run. Please listen to my story and don't learn the hard way about investing in your health.
So, we talked about your experience with looking at it more day to day, and that is one of the ones I mentioned that is more day to day. Still with intentions to be at that 1 pound down at the end of the week. This is a very common one called time restricted eating, but a lot of people will use the umbrella term intermittent fasting. So, TRE or time restricted eating is on a day to day basis. Usually, people will do like 16 hours of fasting, which is going to include your sleep, and then an 8-hour window of eating. So, this one is also another one where you need to make sure that you're focusing on your macronutrients and make sure you get the proper amount of protein in those 8 hours you are eating. In the time that you're fasting, I would still suggest having water. That's really good for your system to always have water and hydration moving throughout.
Fitness Fix with Coach Kinsley, hydration episode. Check it out.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, Coach, while I was still the fat kid who had to ride shotgun, I had a coworker who did the time restricted fasting and fasted from 6 p.m. till noon the next day. So I think that's an 18-hour fast. And he just called it intermittent fasting because that's the only thing I knew about it. So I'm like, okay. And he wanted to hit a certain goal weight. He was specifically looking for that. And he hit it, so it worked for him. And maybe that's what I was thinking about when I first started this fasting thing way back in the day when my body fat percentage was way above normal.
I like that you mentioned that his goal was weight, whereas I'm going to keep bringing us back to body fat percent because body fat percent has more to do with your health because it's considering muscle mass versus fat mass. Whereas if you're just looking at the scale and just looking at the weight, the scale might be going down, but you might be losing muscle mass. And muscle mass is what's going to keep you up and moving throughout all your age and keep your bones nice and dense. So the scale is never something I would put a lot of weight onto. You get what I mean.
Preach it, sister.
Yeah, definitely focus on body fat percent. So if you're doing any type of fasting and you notice that your muscle is suffering, this is just not for you, and that's okay. You know, this is really it's good for people that are in a plateau like I was, or like if you have a very busy lifestyle. This might be a good way to do it. The time restricting eating, it'll take that decision fatigue away because I just have this time, so I'm just going to plan these two bigger meals and I'll be good to go. But again, hydration's still so important, so don't think you're fasting everything here.
So, does that include my cafe latte with 2 shots of brown sugar cinnamon and some oat milk?
Ooh, you're going to have to check the nutrition facts on that
Yeah, I
one. You'll
guess I won't
know.
drink my calories either. It was worth a shot.
Mm-mm. So the last one I want to go over that's an option for fasting is modified alternate day fasting. So this is another one where the fasting is not 0 calories. It usually allows for a single meal of 600 to 800 calories every other day. So one day will be your normal caloric intake, and then the other day will be that 600 to 800. Normal intake, 600, 800, and then keep alternating. So it's exactly what it sounds like.
That just sounds like another way to get to the island of 3,500 calories a week if you're looking at it like
I think
that.
this one personally, if I was interested in lowering my body fat percent right now, this one would work really well in my current lifestyle because my mornings are super busy and I really enjoy eating at night. So if I just saved all my calories for the evening on those fasting days, which aren't actually 0 calories, 600, 800, I think I'd be a happy camper.
Yeah, I think I generally follow that same sort of pattern where it's light eating during the day and then eat my meal at night. And when it comes to the weekend, I think I'm drinking my calories early enough that it lasts me through part of the day and then I still get my calories at night.
Yeah, I mean, listening to your body is number one. Here, this is alternating. So I do want to make sure that we're not doing it every single day where we're relying just on liquid calories. This would be an every other day fasting situation.
Well, I certainly need to make sure I hit my calorie goals for the day through my nutrition. I was told by my primary care person that I am not allowed to lose any more weight. So that was another non scale victory, although it was kind of a scale victory. But generally speaking, she was very happy with where I'm at right now. And that's something that she hadn't said in all the time I'd seen her before.
Right. So in your case, fasting probably isn't even necessary at this point in your health journey. Fasting is really good for people trying to lower their body fat percent.
Bringing it back around to safer ways to lower your body fat percentage. And I'm happy to report that after an entire lifetime of not being in normal range, my body fat percentage is in normal range. And it took me a long time to
Woohoo!
get here, and I'm not going back. So count that as another non scale victory.
That is so awesome. Yes, celebrate that every single day.
Yeah, thanks, Coach. And I do celebrate on a daily basis by putting in the work to keep it off. That in itself, I guess, is a celebration.
There we go. And that's how I hope we all can be, just appreciating living a little bit longer by reducing our risk for chronic diseases. And having that safe body fat percent is a great way to reduce the risk for chronic diseases. We can hit the highlights now. Are you ready?
All right, it's the highlights.
The highlights. So, having a safe body fat percent is going to reduce the risk for chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and even dementia later in life. A safe body fat percent, according to the National Institute of Health, for men is going to be 12 to 20%, and for women, 20 to 30%. Fasting can be a practical way for people to reduce their body fat percent. And you have three options that we went over today. You can do time restricted eating, where you'll fast for a specific amount of time and eat for a specific amount, which is usually 16 hours of fasting, including sleep and water, and then 8 hours of an eating window that is protein focused. You can do intermittent fasting, which looks at the whole week with 5 days of a normal caloric intake and then 2 days that are fasted with a smaller caloric intake of 500 to 700 calories. And these fasted days can be 2 in a row, or they can be alternated between the other days. Or you can do modified alternate day fasting, which every other day you would put yourself from a normal caloric intake and then the next day into a single meal of 600 to 800 calories, which is focused on protein. And water intake is still essential for all of these.
I can't believe we just did an entire episode about fasting and somehow still managed to talk about fish.
You can't swim away. The concepts covered in this episodes are specifically researched for those that are overweight or obese, trying to lower their body fat percent into a safer zone. Please contact your physician before trying any of these. And if the concepts covered in this episode made you uncomfortable or triggered, you can reach out to the National Eating Disorder Association helpline at 800-931-2237, or if it's an emergency, dial 988 or 911. You are not alone.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Fitness Fix with Coach Kinsley. The fun doesn't need to stop here. Email me at coach@coachkinsley.com. You can check out my webpage, coachkinsley.com, and also find me on Instagram at, you guessed it, Coach Kinsley. Your girl. See you next week. Fitness Fix with Coach Kinsley is a production of Greyhawk Enterprise, LLC.